Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. If you really think about it, the human body is basically this vast, uncharted territory. It's this incredible landscape just packed with complex systems, hidden chambers, and intricate networks that are all working together flawlessly to keep you alive. But to truly understand this biological machinery, we need a specialized map. So today, we are going to explore the ultimate blueprint of life itself, human anatomy. We're going to look at the very structures that make you, well, you, and learn exactly how scientists and medical professionals navigate this incredible terrain.
All right, let's dive right into this. In the medical sciences, you are almost always going to hear two words paired together: anatomy and physiology. And a great way to think about it is this: if the human body is a country, anatomy is the physical land and the terrain. It's the scientific study of the body's actual structures, from the absolute smallest microscopic cells up to the largest organs you can see and touch. Physiology, on the other hand, well, that's the economy and the culture operating within that land. It's the study of how those physical structures actually work together to support the functions of life. You simply cannot understand the economy without first understanding the physical land it's built on. So, why does this interconnected relationship actually matter? Well, it all comes down to one ultimate goal, and that is homeostasis. Homeostasis is basically the state of steady internal conditions maintained by living things. It's the behind-the-scenes magic keeping your blood sugar balanced, your body temperature stable, and your oxygen levels in a safe zone. Literally every single anatomical structure we are about to look at exists for one reason: to support the physiological processes that maintain this vital, life-saving balance. Here's a quick roadmap for our journey today. First, we'll cover form dictates function. Second, zooming in. Third, two ways to study. Fourth, the cartographer's tools. And finally, rooms of the body.
Section 1. Form dictates function, the architectural rule.
This is our foundational mantra right here. In the human body, structure exists specifically to support function. You wouldn't design a square wheel for a car, right? In the same way, the body never designs a tissue or an organ without knowing its ultimate job. To really appreciate this, we kind of have to look at the origins of the science. The word anatomy actually comes from the Greek roots ana, meaning up, and temnein, meaning to cut. Historically, the only way to observe how a body's form dictated its function was to literally cut it apart through dissection. But today, our map-making has evolved in a huge way. As the source material points out, we've shifted away from just invasive dissections to highly advanced tech like non-invasive MRIs and even virtual reality platforms where you can literally step inside a life-size biological model.
And this brilliantly illustrates the whole concept of form and function perfectly. Just look at your own hand for a second. The unique alignment of your opposable thumb in opposition to your other four fingers, that is a very specific anatomical form. And its function? It allows you to pinch, to grasp tools, and to hold your cell phone. Or think about the heart. Its anatomy features these large hollow chambers called ventricles. Why are they hollow? Because their physiological function is to pump massive volumes of blood throughout the entire body. The form perfectly dictates the function.
Moving on to section 2, zooming in, looking at anatomical scales.
Just like zooming in on a digital map on your phone to really understand the terrain, anatomists have to look at the body across completely different scales. Zoomed all the way out, we have gross anatomy, which is also called macroscopic anatomy. These are the large structures you can see with a naked eye, kind of like viewing continents on a map. But when we zoom in using powerful microscopes, we enter microscopic anatomy. That's like looking at individual houses on a street. And within this microworld, we break it down even further into cytology, the study of individual cells, and histology, which is the study of how those cells organize into biological tissues.
Section 3. Two ways to study: regional versus systemic. Because there is just so much structural data in the human body, anatomists absolutely need distinct methodologies to organize it all. And the two main approaches are regional and systemic. The systemic approach studies one functional network across the entire body, like tracking every single muscle in the muscular system, no matter where it's located. The regional approach, however, looks at all the different structures, the muscles, nerves, blood vessels, that are packed into one specific area, like the abdomen. Interestingly enough, major medical textbooks, like Gray's Anatomy, have actually reorganized over time from a systemic format over to a regional format. Why? Well, because it's incredibly practical for surgeons to understand exactly how different parts are crammed together in a confined space before they ever start to operate. Which actually brings us to a really practical question.
With all these tissues, systems, and regions, how do we actually navigate this massive biological map without getting hopelessly lost? Like if a doctor in Tokyo needs to communicate with a surgeon in New York about a specific spot on the body, how do they ensure they are talking about the exact same location?
Section 4, the cartographer's tools, covering language and planes.
To completely eliminate ambiguity, medical professionals rely on a highly specific language derived from ancient Greek and Latin. Now, what's really interesting here is this standard pose. To use any directional terms, everyone has to start from the exact same orientation. This is called the standard anatomical position. Imagine a body standing upright, feet shoulder-width apart and parallel, toes pointing forward, with the upper limbs held out slightly to each side and the palms of the hands facing directly forward. By standardizing this pose universally, it ensures doctors literally never confuse the location of a scar or a symptom. Even if a patient is lying face down on an operating table, their anatomy is always described as if they were standing in this exact standard position. Okay, once we have that standard map locked in, we can use directional terms. And these basically always come in paired opposites. Picture your own body for a second as we walk through these. Superior means above, toward the head, while inferior is below. So your nose, it's superior to your mouth. Anterior or ventral is toward the front, while posterior or dorsal is toward the back. So your sternum is anterior to your heart. Medial means toward the midline of the body, and lateral means away from it. Your heart is medial to your lungs. And finally, for your limbs, proximal means closer to the point of attachment to the body, while distal means farther away. Therefore, your elbow is proximal to your wrist. It's honestly a brilliant spatial storytelling tool. Another absolutely crucial cartographer's tool is the anatomical plane. Because the body is three-dimensional, sometimes we need to look at flat, two-dimensional cross-sections. It's kind of like cutting an apple in different directions just to see the core. The sagittal plane slices the body vertically right into left and right sides. The frontal plane bisects the body lengthwise into front and back portions. And the transverse plane cuts horizontally, dividing the body into top and bottom sections, which, by the way, is highly useful in modern medical imaging, like CT scans.
Section 5, rooms of the body, mapping out the major cavities.
If you think of our anatomical blueprint as the layout of a grand house, the body cavities are the designated rooms where our vital organs actually live. The body maintains its internal organization by separating these compartments. The two largest are the dorsal cavity, located along the back, and the ventral cavity, located along the front. So the crucial point here is that these aren't just empty voids. They are hollow, fluid-filled spaces that serve a really important dual purpose. They tightly protect our delicate internal organs from physical damage, but they also provide just enough room for those organs to expand and move around as they perform their physiological duties.
Let's take a quick guided tour of the dorsal cavity first. This posterior compartment basically has two main rooms. First up is the cranial cavity, which safely encloses the brain within the hard bone of the skull. Second is the spinal or vertebral cavity, which houses the spinal cord. Because the central nervous system is so incredibly delicate and literally vital to our survival, the dorsal cavity evolved to protect it with continuous rigid bone. Now let's move to the front and see how this builds, looking at the much larger ventral cavity. This cavity has a huge job because it has to accommodate organs that are constantly changing size and shape. It's divided into two main zones by this dome-shaped muscle called the diaphragm. Above the diaphragm is the thoracic cavity, which houses your expanding lungs and beating heart. And below the diaphragm is the abdominopelvic cavity, which is this massive space containing your churning digestive organs, like the stomach and intestines, as well as the reproductive organs.
But wait, if you have a heart constantly beating and lungs constantly expanding inside that thoracic cavity, why don't they just rub against each other and cause immense pain? Well, the secret lies in serous membranes. These are brilliant little specialized linings found in the ventral cavity. They secrete this thin, lubricating fluid that dramatically reduces internal friction. Thanks to these membranes, your organs can easily slide right past one another as they work tirelessly to keep you in that perfect state of homeostasis. So, from microscopic cells to these vast structural cavities, human anatomy really is a masterclass in design, where form flawlessly dictates function. We've mapped the terrain, and we've learned the language of the cartographers who study it. But I want to leave you with this one provocative thought. Evolution is an ongoing process. If our biological blueprint evolved to perfectly support our current physiological functions, how might our anatomy physically restructure itself to adapt to the technology and the totally new environments of the deep future? Will our internal map eventually need to be completely redrawn? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.